Hey, everybody. Hi, Molly Smith here on this rainy day in Washington, D.C. And welcome to Molly's Salon. This is a program we have every Thursday night from 7 to 7:30, coming directly to you from Washington, D.C. arena stage in our own homes. And I interview innovative thinkers and creative firebrands. And these guests are artists and leaders discussing new ideas, how they're coping with the pandemic, and offering glimmers of hope for the future. My first guest tonight is the dynamic Steve Moore, Executive Director of the Southwest Business Improvement District, known as the SWBID. Steve. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Molly, how are you?
Nice. Good, good. It's good to see you. Normally we're in one area of Washington, D.C., Southwest. Would you describe for people, because people all over the country watch this show, would you describe what Southwest Washington is?
So if you can, picture that area of the city that's south of the National Mall down to Washington Channel, roughly from the Holocaust Museum all the way over to the baseball stadium. That's in broad terms, Southwest.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I'm really curious, Steve, because I've been at home and I don't have an opportunity to get over into Southwest. How's Southwest Washington faring during the pandemic?
Well, you know, it's a little bit like a small town, Southwest. I mean, it has its own newspaper. The neighborhood association is probably 55 years old. And so I noticed that in the last couple of days in particular, that people seem to be asking, what do we do to make sure the neighborhood stays together? Yeah. Are we kind of looking out for each other enough? Should we be doing art projects that lift people's spirits a little bit? Even the Fringe Festival, which I know you're familiar with, right? Yeah. So now they're out of business. But she's saying, what is it that I could be doing with Fringe that would cause the neighborhood to kind of come together, allow people to express both the heartache of what they're going through, but also sort of stuff that's maybe a little more uplifting. The bigger news for us, though, I think, was that we found at the BID that there was a need to deliver food to people who either couldn't get out or were stuck in the house for one reason or another. I think now we're almost at 12,000 meals in the last couple weeks.
Wow.
We're working with Jose Andres over at the World Central Kitchen. Sure. It's a big kitchen over at the Nationals ballpark, right? And we drive the meals from the ballpark to, and this is what I think your question is in a way, a network of volunteers, all from the neighborhood. They take the food from us and they distributed them around to people who can't get out or who are disabled or in public housing. That has been really heartwarming, actually.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, how are your guys responding to this? Because you have a whole group of people that work with you, Steve, that are incredible in the whole neighborhood. They did a lot of gardening for us at Arena Stage. They did an absolutely beautiful job. You used to be at Arena Stage when we were waiting for your building to be built. Yeah. How are they reacting to taking food around residents, and what makes them uniquely poised to do it?
Well, imagine almost no bids have ever incubated in the basement of a theater like yours. So it's really, I mean, it's just entirely different. Imagine as opposed to like a law firm or some big development company. Right. It's like a day and night. So I think it helped us, actually. So the delivering of food, I noticed a little bit with your landscaping, but with the delivering of the food, it seems like it's lifted our guys up. They kind of relish this. It's become important to them. And, you know, our staff meetings are not like any staff meetings that I had prior to setting the BID up. These guys go deep with each other. And so they say, this is important to me. Maybe I'm supposed to do this. No one's ever late. No one sort of ever misses the opportunity to work on the food stuff. I'm serious when I say they actually stand a little taller. They really seem to like this.
Well, we're finding a lot of cracks in the system right now, aren't we, in the middle of the pandemic? Yeah. In terms of the number of people who are insecure as far as their food, not getting 3 meals a day, only getting 1 meal a day, getting half a meal a day. And it's happening all over the city.
It's absolutely
And
true.
yeah, and
It's
you
true.
guys are amazing that you are able to get some of those meals out to people so that they don't get hungry. I mean, I really, really worry for our community.
So this would have been something that I mean, you or I might have been aware of food insecurity, but I never was this close to anything like this before. And all of us are going to have to sit around a table after this is over and say, to your point about what's emerging now, what's happened here, how did this get so completely excluded?
Right.
What is it we should be thinking about going forward?
Do you think that our country and our city will become more open, more understanding, more able to reach out to other people after the pandemic? Or do you think we're going to get smaller and meaner from the pandemic?
Yeah, so
Where do
that's,
where do you think we're going to go?
yeah. Well, you know what I think? I think it's going to be people like us that are going to make the decision. I can't be smaller anymore. We're all connected here. I mean, what could be more obvious than that we're all connected? And that I think you're going to have to stand for that a little bit, and probably it's going to change all of us.
Yeah.
And if you decide to be more separate from others, I think it's going to be obvious, almost unwelcome.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a major shift in all of our communities with people who are doing the kind of work you're doing, the kind of work that we see organizations all over the city doing, that's just going to grow and blossom, because you know what? It has to.
Yeah, no, it has to.
If there's anything that's happened within this pandemic, it's teaching us, as you said, that we're all connected, because we're all connecting with people all over the country now.
Right.
We're all connecting with everybody. You know, I live in a co-op with Suzanne, and we're connecting with people here. And it's that reach out that's going to make the huge difference.
I think you're right.
Do you think that the country is going to change in terms of its relationship to the government because of this?
I think it becomes hyper local. I think what happens is all of this becomes, we have to control our own destiny. We have to be a lot more conscious about taking care of the person next door, and we're going to have to step up. And there won't, I think, and this is kind of the experience of bids anyway. You can't look to the government for all of the things you want. You want to clean the park, let's go clean the park. You want the school to be better, let's go make the school better. No, I think that relationship will change.
Great. And Steve, I have a final question for you. What do you think we will learn from this pandemic?
Well, I'll tell you what I've learned, and it's here at the house, it's a little personal. So my wife washes the kitchen floor like 3 times a day now. And because she washes it so much, it's slippery. And I told her, I said, I'm going to slip and break my neck, stop washing the floor. I go into the kitchen the other day, and this is what's wrapped around the kitchen floor. So it's all going to change, Molly.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Steve.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Right. Take care. Bye-bye. My next guest is coming to us all the way from Canada, from Toronto. My good friend, an absolutely fantastic former artistic director, Jacquie Maxwell, from Shaw Festival. She is an international theater director. There she is. And I've known Jacquie now for probably over 30 years. And thanks, Jacquie, so much for coming on. It's great to see you all the way from Canada.
Oh, it's great to be here, Molly, and it's great to see you as always, even if it's on a screen.
Well, you've been on a lot of screens lately, right, Jacquie? I mean,
yeah.
the Shaw Festival hasn't canceled its season. And so you continue to work with the actors in rehearsal, in Zoom rehearsals. So explain to people how that works, because that seems really odd to me.
Yeah, it seemed really odd to me too. I mean, it was my first time back at the Shaw, in fact, since I'd run it 4 years ago. So I was so happy to be back. I'm doing Playboy of the Western World, a play I love. Great cast. 2 weeks into rehearsal, we're having a wonderful time. And then, of course, lockdown. We're all at home, we're all self-isolating. And then management decided that they wanted to keep the place running and to pay the artists and those working at the theater as long as they could. So they said Zoom, and I'm going, Zoom? How the hell do you rehearse on Zoom? I don't, of course, being a complete Luddite, I was a bit nervous, to say the least. But, the interesting thing is, so here we are, but in the same way that you and I are talking to each other, you can indeed communicate, or as you've shown in this Salon, which I've been so enjoying watching. So really what it is, it was deciding or finding out what you could do on Zoom, and then when you kind of hit a wall. So what you can do on Zoom as artists working on a play, you can talk about character, you can talk about the text, analyze the text, which is of course a lot of what we do, as at the beginning, but also all the way through. And you can do scene work. You can actually work on scenes. I have to say, smaller scenes are better. As soon as the scenes start to get, more populated, it gets a little crazy. But, and so we actually have been able to sort of, are we going to go on? Probably not. I think at this point, it looks like, like most places, it will have to close down. But I don't know. I'm blissfully not, I blissfully don't have to make that decision. But I think the thing is, we will have actually creatively banked a lot of information about this play. What you do want to do, Gray Powell is a wonderful actor who's playing the Playboy. And he said, the only thing that makes me groan sometimes is after a session, he said, all I want to do is get up on my feet and do it, which is, of course, what we do in the rehearsal hall. So it's a little bit Schadenfreude at times, but there's no doubt I've been impressed, and I'm really impressed by the fact that the actors, it's a real testament to the strength of their ability to connect. Mm. So I have to say, I hope I don't have to do it all the time, but it's been fascinating.
I wonder too, what might happen with a technique like this. Say you got into rehearsal and the pandemic rears its head again, right? And then maybe you have the ability to go on Zoom and to continue what you're doing in terms of conversations with the actors, some of the scene work that you're doing with the actors, because that moment will actually help you move the story forward, as opposed to, oh, sorry, you can't rehearse now for a week.
Yeah, well, that's what will be so interesting. And I think it depends, a lot of it depends on where you're at, as you say, in the process. Could you go back? Could you try it again? Could you take it? All of that. So I think we have to think of it now as, with all of the things with the pandemic, looking forward to go, well, here's a new tool. Who knew?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest new tools for all of us in the theater is so many people turned up their nose to anything that was online, or it was online. Okay, that's fine. That's a piece of what we do. But now for a period of time, this is the piece of what we are doing in order to continue communicating. Yeah. And if there's anything that theaters want to do, it's to be able to communicate with an audience. So that's pretty fascinating too. That will stay. I mean, there's no question about that. That's going to be big time. So I'm really curious about Canada, because here you are in Canada, you've been in the States, you've directed a number of times brilliantly for us at Arena. And Canada is handling the pandemic in a different way. than we are in the United States. And do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because your numbers are quite different.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, you know, nothing is perfect, of course, but I'm pretty impressed. I mean, we have strong leadership. Justin Trudeau and his team are really listening to the scientists. They're really, you know, taking the information on. And in fact, the other thing that I wasn't necessarily, I mean, I would sort of expect that, but what has happened is we have, you know, our provinces, and I mean, they're an unruly bunch. I mean, because, you know, there's many sort of, the center is very much further right than the, you know, this side. And it's a big country, and it's very separate in many ways. But I have to say, in this case, those leaders are working together. They're talking to each other. They're listening to each other, which is the main thing. And so they're sharing information. They're sharing, you know, Alberta, for example, sent a whole bunch of masks and so on over to Ontario, because they were doing, you know, Ontario was doing, it has a much higher rate at the moment than, you know, like all of this kind of stuff, which I have to say has been pretty moving. And the other thing as well is they've been very fast in bringing out new programs for one of the big things that obviously that affects artists certainly, and what they call, you know, gig workers, as they call them. Really quickly they brought out something that was there to give $2,000 a month for all artists, gig work, anybody. People had to apply. Both my daughters, who, you know, are artists, of course, they applied and had $2,000 in each of their bank accounts within 2 days. So, you know, I know. So things like that. I mean, there are huge fault lines. I think, very like the States, long-term care homes have been exposed to be a huge fault line. But for sure, and there are issues. But I have to say, all in all, I listen to the leaders. I feel that, you know, there is a safety net that we do have, and that is being used. It's not covering everybody, of course not, all of that. And I think, again, as Steve was saying very interestingly, there has been an enormous upsurge in volunteer work, and people are energized and want to help. But I will say that I think that there is a structure that can be tapped into quickly to help people.
That's
so
so
at
great.
the moment, that feels strong. Yeah.
That's so great. Jackie, I'm being told that it's time. So I'm sorry that I'm going to be losing you. Are you going to do something for me right now?
Okay. So just a little Zoom trick there, Molly.
Would
you like an apple?
Yes.
There you go.
Did it work?
Well, I think so. You'll have to ask.
All right. Thanks, Jackie. Great to see you. Great to see you. Take care. Bye-bye. And my next guest is Edgar Dobie. And Edgar Dobie is the executive producer at Arena Stage. He's my partner at Arena in creating all of the fantastic work that you see at Arena. Oh, here's Edgar, and Edgar is here with Greta Lee. Greta Lee, hi, how are you today?
I was just saying that Greta Lee decided to crash our conversation because she feels that I have been withholding very important creative information from you. So
well, Greta Lee,
I yield a minute or two to my daughter.
Yes, you have.
I have, okay.
My musical is about Jaws. I feel like it should be passed on, not ignored.
You feeling it was ignored?
Yes.
Oh.
Very.
did I ignore it, or did your dad ignore it? He did?
Man.
He's
So-called my father.
He's
Didn't
told
pass
me-
on my ideas.
Well, you know, I did put your artwork up on my bulletin board.
In your office for no one to admire.
Well, you know, you said you got to get the poster right first before you get the show right, didn't you?
True.
True.
But it has me in it, so it's going to be good anyways.
Oh, okay, good. Well, you can see there's no shortage of modesty here.
Now,
Right.
I think you're for that, Greta Lee, because that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So I think she's got some drawing to do, or I think you got a scene to write or a song to write, right?
No, playing Minecraft. Really.
The Minecraft. Okay, we'll see you later.
Thank you for your time.
Bye, Greta Lee.
There she
Great
goes.
to see her. There she goes. There she goes, and she's off.
Was my Canadian-ish and my Southwest-ish DC origins. It's part of, it's part of, I do feel it that DC and Southwest are now part of how I define myself. The artist behind you, by the way, is a Canadian artist named Colette French, whose painting is called Clyde's Fans. I get questions about that. So I feel that kind of connection to Canada, and certainly to Jacquie, who we worked together for a brief period of time, well, for a couple of seasons at the National Arts Center. And of course, having her here and join us as the chief creative force on so many wonderful productions that you've curated and worked on with her is thrilling. And in the Southwest, I'd had experiences with BIDs in Providence and actually in Times Square when I was working on Broadway, and so I saw how important they were, and so that connection to Steve and the Southwest BID, it seemed like a no-brainer that we would want something like that in Southwest, because it has its own heartbeat, this place, and so we've Tracy and I feel really blessed that we've been able to actually make a home here, and I certainly enjoy when I'm able to a 3-minute walk to work in the morning.
Yes. And how do you find the neighborhood changing now? I mean, you're out for walks with your dog Smoochie, you're in the neighborhood. How is it going past the emptiness of Arena Stage? There's no one there, and the building's beautiful, but
Yeah, I know it. There is a sense of, definitely we're all feeling a sense of loss that it attaches itself to uncertainty. And part of what I do when I step out off the property here to go for a walk is I look for simple pleasures in the day that are available in the neighborhood. You've probably all noticed, if you're outside at all, that birdsong has much more range to it. When we do step out, we step out into a verdant, really, a huge blossoming of the gardens and the trees. Our route is prescribed. It does involve catching sight of Arena Stage to make sure that all the windows are still there and the roof's still on the place. But I also stand at the corner right in front of St. Augustine's Church and look up and see the, Monty Hoffman's cranes kind of in a ballet, a silent ballet. There's less, I feel for the airline industry, but there are far fewer birds of that kind in the air. So you hear so much more. And so it's, but I say you've got to look for the pleasure in it when we all know we're dealing with a really, really difficult situation.
I find I keep examining every single flowering tree and every tulip that's coming up and every flower. I mean, spring just keeps springing.
Yeah.
And the pandemic hasn't stopped it. And it certainly hasn't stopped my hay fever. As the maples come up. And
I do start each morning with a couple of shots of Flonase, I will say, before I go my walk.
I should do that. I should do that.
Yeah.
Edgar, how do you think the theater is going to change?
So we've had to perforce move past this moment of crisis management, I think, and recognize that we are in a marathon, and that things are going to change. I think we are really blessed with the senior staff and the colleagues that we have to work with to figure this out. We're also blessed with a board that is engaged, and we're all about protecting the future. And I think we know that we have to create a safe place for the artists to, that is our North Star for the artists, for our employees, for a number of, and eventually when we're able to invite audiences back into the space to enjoy the stories, we have to have their safety and their comforts in mind. You know, my you know, uncertainty loves and needs company. It needs confidence. It needs, and so, you know, I find that we're really blessed to be at the pioneering edge of a really important movement, the resident theater movement. I think we forged a lot of the values that we have very early on. You know, one of those that I learned from you was respecting the culture of the rehearsal hall. And so as we move forward and look and adapt and change, and we've got to be smart, we will be, but we also have to be rooted in those values as well. And I think we're well positioned to do that because they're human values and they're really baked into how we've always treated people.
Tonight, I am announcing a competition at Arena Stage. What's the weirdest thing that you have found in your closet while you've been cleaning? Everybody's been cleaning. What strange object or costume piece did you find? Send a picture to us at Arena Stage, and our props and costume shop is going to decide what's the weirdest objects, and you're going to win prizes. So thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you so much, Edgar and Jackie and Steve. You've been great.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to be with you.